Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so glad you're all here. And my name is Janet Benge. I'm the board chair at the moment, and we have a few board members here. So if you're a board member, wave your hand. Woohoo! Yay, we have Jeff and John and Mona, and did I miss anyone? Okay, so if you would like a tour of the house when you're done, see one of them, and they'll be happy to do it. And Mona is our newest board member, so she just joined our board, and she is our next door neighbor. Mona, oh dear, I had it. Alawi, I had it, and then it left me, sorry. All I can see is all those vowels. But we are very, very glad to have Mona on our board, and she's going to have a little bit to say later maybe. So we also have a lot of neighbors here, I think, more than normal. So if you're a neighbor and you haven't been before, would you raise your hand? Look, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I mean, and then we have Barbara. So we probably have 8 or 9 neighbors, which is just awesome because I know you have been here, watching all of these things change. So if you have any questions, please let us know. In that regard, I have an artistic mailing list. And if you would like to get on our email list, we do a once a month email of what's happening, what the next event is, who's in the house. Just feel free to put your name down here and we'll put you on the list. We won't solicit you probably very often. Though we do have some needs. So if you just pass that down. So we are here tonight for Chelsey Clammer, who is our resident. We have 4 residents a year. They get picked from a large pool of people who apply from like 30 countries, and we get around 300 people. So it's very competitive, and we like to pick people who we feel, in the spirit of Jack Kerouac, could really benefit from being here, would really make good use of it, and would really help them to get to the next step. So, and obviously have the talent to get there. So that's why we chose Chelsey. And we've been very delighted to have her here. Every resident we have is a little bit different and they can write short stories or poems or playwrights. We've had all sorts of people here. And everyone brings a little bit something different to our community. And we invite them to do workshops in the house, which Chelsey did, and also to go out into the community and seed what they know and into our Orlando community, making it more strong and more diverse. So that's really exciting. So Chelsey has added her own little brand of diverseness. I think she is our first chronic knitter that we've had. Which is awesome. I mean, I'm in awe of her writing, but her knitting is also like, oh my goodness. She just knits. She likes to knit as she's thinking about what she's going to write. And I do feel that the gods have blessed us with a cold night so she can wear her hat that she knitted. She's just knits a lot and thinks a lot. So it's a really cool combination. And she has been very diligent in the house. And, we never know if people are going to come and have some kind of crisis. We get a lot of young people who have never lived alone before. And sometimes that is challenging to just be like, oh, I'm the only one in here. I have to lock the doors. I have to make my own lunch. Sometimes that's really, a big thing. But so Chelsey has fitted in really well and as part of our community, and we've grown to love her. And now she is going to read to us a couple of pieces, and then we have something very special at the end as well. So please stay. So Chelsey Clammer, come on up.
Hello, I'm Chelsey. Thank you so much. This is such a big crowd. I was not expecting this whatsoever. Thank you for this space, to say the very least. This has been great. Here. Let me get my piece first. I'm going to read 2 pieces. The first one I used to work at a bookstore, and so I would have to host a lot of events, and sometimes the writers, I'd be like, how much longer are you going on for? And so I always like to tell people how long I'm reading for in case you don't enjoy it, which is fine if you don't, whatever. So I'm reading 2 pieces. The first one is about 9 minutes long, and the second one's about 19 minutes long. So the first one is a little bit more sad. The first, a little bit more about me. I am an author. I have 2 books. Circadian is my latest one. It won the Red Hen Press Nonfiction Award in 2015 and was published in 2017. And then they also just picked up my next collection of essays. It won't be published until fall of 2022, but they have that. And then while I've been in the house here, I've written half a new collection, and the 2 pieces that I'm reading are from that collection. The very first one is the one that I started right before I got here, and then I edited it, so that was the first piece I completed. And then the other one is going to be like the title essay for the book that I've been working on while I've been here. Okay, so this first one is called The Shape of a Day. Courtney and I slept together a few nights ago, but not like that. Girlfriends at 16, we were each other's first love. Now, almost 20 years later, that's not us. But I've been staying in the 5-bedroom house Courtney shared with her mom until last week when her mom bled to death in Courtney's arms. They couldn't stand each other, but they loved one another. That sort of, you piss me the hell off, but I love the hell out of you because you know me so well, that kind of mother-daughter relationship. A few days after Regina coughed out so much blood that it killed her, Courtney and I slept in her dead mom's bed, right where the fatal blood flood began. That night, Regina had called for help. Courtney had raced to the bedroom to find her spewing out blood like a water hose, Courtney described. Then she got her mom on the floor, leaned her over her shoulder to let the blood weep out of her, and held her mom as she died. I mean, how do you stop that kind of bleeding? Courtney rhetorically questioned me a few days later. You don't. You can't. You just make the person comfortable so they don't drown in their own blood. So I'm staying with Courtney to comfort her. I reached out to her when I saw her Facebook post about her motherless daughter status, regardless that we hadn't talked in years. We slept together in her mom's bed, but not like how we slept together in her mom's bed when we were in high school and her mom was out of town, and so we fucked like mad on her king-size mattress. This time, I didn't spoon her. I was just there, filling in the motherless hollow to fight off loneliness and depression, sleeping in the spot where Regina started to slip away from life as her life force, all that blood, slept out of her. 6 years ago, the blood also slipped out of me, intentionally, though. Not a hospital mishap like in Regina's situation, but a repeated act that landed me in psych wards and ERs. My arms wept from mental instability, self-medicated with intoxication. Courtney missed this part of my life, like how I missed her wicked meth addiction. But the scars on my forearms are there to fill her in on my life events she wasn't a part of, because ex-lovers tend to drift away like that. The intensity of first love snaps, then connection fizzles, goes flat. Decades drift the exes apart. Courtney wasn't in my life for 20 years. 3 of those spent slicing my arms. She didn't see the psychosis and spilled blood. Still, here we are, 20 years post-breakup, and a certain level of I know you so well is felt each time I collect her grieving body in my scarred arms and try to lessen the weight of such grief. Something she never had the chance to do for me. I prayed promises to my ex-girlfriend's dead mother. 4 days after her death, from an instance of too many blood thinners prescribed post-lung surgery, I'm cleaning blood splatter off a dresser 10 feet away from where Regina began to die. And I'm making promises to this dead woman that I'll take care of her daughter, even though that was a major factor in our relationship's demise. My ex didn't know how to take care of herself, never brushed her teeth, showered, or cleaned up after herself. And I got frustrated with trying to make her do it all. Before personal hygiene issues and frustrations over one's lack of semi-adulting, our relationship was good, even though it started off not so good. For our first real date, Courtney and I went ice skating, and she fell trying to do a hockey stop wearing figure skates. Her nose hit the ice and busted open, and blood came gushing out. After the manager hollered for someone to get some ice, after my date screamed back, "There's fucking ice all around me," I then sat at the hospital's ER waiting room with her mother, who I had never met, her father, who didn't even know I existed and that his daughter was gay, and the tension simmering between the two of them, even though their divorce was over 16 years ago. It was textbook awkward. Regardless, Regina became an ally at times because we both experienced her daughter's frustrating lack of cleanliness and punctuality. Comrades and commiserating, we bonded over the common enemy. It wasn't a strong bond by any means, and I won't embellish it here to make more out of our relationship than what it really was. But people do this after death. Claim closeness so we can feel more involved in everyone else's grief. But I will say that she became a fixture in my life during that 1.5-year relationship. And now, I sit on her bedroom floor, wiping away her own personal evidence left behind of her soul now gone. I'm here, staying at her house for the 4th night in a row, keeping Courtney company, helping to hold such grief, cleaning blood-splattered dressers, blocking mental images of the events, feeding the 12 cats and 2 dogs, and giving hugs to my ex when she starts howling, trying to help her make a day look like a day again. My therapist from forever ago would talk to me about that. How when we experience trauma, the first thing we have to do is try to make a day look like a day. Sleep, wake up, eat, do something, eat, sleep. It sounds so simple and easy until you're grieving. And even years after a death, there are still days that resemble nothing of themselves. In the 20 years during which Courtney and I lost touch, many people in my life died. My father, grandparents, a smattering of friends, a mentee, my sanity. With each death, I felt a little more of myself slip away until I started to swipe away at my flesh with memories of the dead, those rocky relationships I didn't get to reconcile before the other person bowed out of life. Through each of these complicated and tragic deaths, my therapist continued to say that days had to start being made again. Even when the weight of one more breath made me want to cut, made me feel like I might get crushed. Courtney and I watched a documentary yesterday about the killer whales at SeaWorld, how they really did kill. One whale trainer lying on the stomach of a whale, another 12,000-pound whale sprinting up, lifting into the air, then landing right on top of the other whale, the trainer crushed between them, a deathly whale sandwich. That's my ex-girlfriend's grief. Floating along in life until an event occurs, and grief comes crashing down, completely flattening you. And it's true. Grief kills, it crushes. Parts of you die off when the living go dead. Perhaps I'm here on a rescue mission. Save what parts of Courtney I can so she can begin building her days again. We watch documentaries to distract her, though she keeps putting the pipe to her lips, keeps tossing trash wherever, keeps eating only pink wafer cookies. She hasn't showered in months. Guiding the grieving is hard enough when you don't have someone's addiction and uncleanliness predilection to factor in. I am slowly seeing that Courtney's days have never looked like days, even before death came crashing down. I decorate my walls with the dead. The faces I have captured over the years, images of me posed with those who are no longer alive. It's odd to look at a picture taken at your high school graduation and realize that of the 4 people posed together, you're the only one who's still alive. And yet, I find comfort in looking at the dead because it ensures me that those people were real, that the human connection I felt with them, both bad and good, wasn't of my imagination, even though they now only exist in my memories. Though there is healing power in interacting with the imagination. It's the space where past arguments are solved and stagnant relationships are strengthened. I talk to the dead on my walls, but not in a psychotic way. Rather, I have conversations with them in my head that help to keep me living, growing. How after the scars started forming, grief started dissipating, the trauma then started fading. Sometimes I swear I can hear the dead cheering me on. I don't have a picture of Regina hanging on my wall because we weren't really close like that. But I keep on conversing with my ex-girlfriend's dead mother, promising I'll help take care of her daughter because she has never known how to do that. Doing laundry, making phone calls, checking mail, cleaning furniture, and grocery shopping. I'm here to coax Courtney into the structure of a normal motherless day. To get her to eat, get her to sleep, get her to put the meth pipe down for a minute and just breathe. To make her feel comfortable in living. There's a type of comfort between us now, how our pasts are imprinted on one another's bones. We were there for each other's coming of age, played a part even in our becoming of self, regardless of the years spent apart. This is not about a reignited romantic love. That will never happen. Our attraction for one another petered out and died quickly toward the end of us. Rather, it's a knowing you so well love, like Courtney and Regina had. Even when our frustrating traits are still major staples of our personalities, a connection is still felt, an ease, comfort created. I have come to comfort to help hold her grief. But how can you really hold someone else's grief? My therapist from forever ago used to say that, how she held things for me. And in the holding, my emotional experience could shift, lighten up a bit. As if the heavy load of my emotional states could be unburdened just a bit by telling her of what was weighing on me. And with the way that I see Courtney's grieving, her downward spiraling into a life that's not for the living, I don't know how long my strength will hold out, will hold her. I'm making promises to a dead woman I'm not sure I can keep. Thank you. So that's where I'm living, and that's the house I'm returning to when I get done here. Courtney is doing better, I hope. She's a good person. Oh, okay, and I have books for sale, should you want a book. It's my plug. It's Circadian. It's a very recognizable cover. When I first saw it, I was like, that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. And then I was like, that's going to stand out on a bookshelf, though. So, they're $15, and I do have change, and I do have PayPal. That's my plug. Okay, so then the second essay is a bit more uplifting. And like I said, there have been 3 essays that I started and finished here. And that one was published on the 20th, and so we're going to take a video, and I'm hopefully going to publish that online, too, with it. And so this one, I had a really hard time with this essay, and it started out just all over the place, and I was like, I can't be a writer, I don't know what I'm doing, and then I stuck with it, and I've even continued to edit it. I got it down from like 26 pages to 13 pages, I think, so that was an improvement. But the people that I've had read it, they liked it, so I hope you like it, too. Okay, it's called Collectively Speaking. I'm falling apart all over the place in a hotel room in some god-awful state that's 1/3 of the way between Denver and Washington, D.C. I hopped in my car at 5 a.m., left my crazy but not in a fun way husband in bed. I got on I-70 and started heading east to where a friend lives. By nightfall, I'm twisted in emotional knots because I'm scared my husband will kill himself. It's 2015, and Kansas apparently doesn't believe in cell phones because I had no reception during the day as I drove through that entire state. So I hadn't been able to check in with him, to tell him that I left and that he needed to go get help. And now that I'm finally somewhere that cell phone technology actually exists, when I call him, his phone goes right to voicemail. Maybe I'm terrible for leaving. But after taking him to the ER a month ago, where he refused to be admitted and lied by saying he wasn't suicidal, and then a few weeks after that, taking him to a mental health crisis center where he described his plan for killing himself, but was again able to talk his way out of being admitted, he then started yelling at me yesterday before he started arguing with the walls. If he refuses to get help and take medication, then I can't help him. All I can do is save my own sanity and emotional safety, and so I left as he slept, have ventured further across the U.S. to stay with a friend I'm hoping will help to recover me from this chaos. But now it's the night of the morning I left, and I'm trying to sleep in this yellowed and withered hotel room, and I start imagining how my husband might be killing himself right now. My friend in D.C. texts that if I'm scared, maybe I should suck it up and go back. She's not helping. So, I text my bestest best friend, Maria, a writer. She responds with positive messages, reminds me to breathe, tells me that I need to stay put, to get some sleep, to take care of myself because he needs to do that for his own self, and I can't force him to, but I can take care of me. All I can do in this moment is try to calm down and sleep. I'm still sobbing, but breathing some, but haven't fully surfaced from crisis mode. And then this happens. Me. I'm sobbing so hard that I have gallons of snot coming out of my face. Maria texts back, "Sweetie, snot is measured in metric." That was funny. And now I am laughing my face off and everything is fine, and Maria helped me to breathe because it's hard to be devastated and scared when you're cackling and howling like mad. This is the power of words, and more specifically, the power of having women writers as friends. Those who don't have to be in your physical presence to give you a hug, but can save you from yourself and your hardest life moments with just a few sent texts. If, for some weird-ass reason, you were assigned the tiresome task of spying on me, you would see that it doesn't seem like I have any humans in my life. Any. Post-divorce, it was inevitable. And working from home as a freelance editor, I spend every day alone, in my apartment, or on this porch right here, planted in front of my computer, clunking on a dirty keyboard, and staring at a screen. My ex often said I needed friends, continuously told me that I needed to get out, to go meet people and get connected. I get that it looks like that I have a lonely existence, not a single friend within driving distance. But really, and he never understood this, I'm talking to people all day long. Unending email conversations, G-chats, Facebook messages, texts. Even editing another person's work is like having a conversation. I have best friends, those people in my life who I feel connected to on a level that matches none other. I'm constantly hanging out with my friends. We're just never in the same physical space. In fact, one of my best friends is a woman I've never met. A book is a collection of words. A community is a collection of people. A friendship is a collection of memories. But for Angela and me, our friendship is a collection of emails exchanged between time and space, essays sent back and forth. We know and know of each other through our words. She calls me love and signs her emails with XO. I reply with sentences about how she's my favorite and also sign them with XO. It's what we do. Our first exchange, like so many first exchanges between writer friends, was an email. December of 2015, I emailed a group called Wow, Women on Writing, wondering if they were hiring for an online creative nonfiction instructor. They said yes, and I sent them a CV, author bio, author photo, and a class proposal. In February of 2016, I received an email from the site's editor-in-chief, Angela McIntosh, saying that yes, they wanted me to teach, and that P.S., I love your dreads. And now, it's almost 4 years later, and Angela calls me love, and I've claimed her as my favorite, and she's seen me through my worst moments, and she is also my first reader and has read every essay I've ever written, even the unpublished ones. And I am in love with the essays she has written about her mom who killed herself and about past abusive relationships. In these past 4 years, we've been through a lot together. Helped each other through mini and maxi traumas. She was having to get a hysterectomy while I was excising a friend from my life. Angela saw me through my gambling addiction. I witnessed from afar her struggles with her husband getting ill. And she fractured the hell out of her ankle from falling down a cliff while running, but she was emotionally there in my inbox when I got divorced. Our friendship is about how we connect on the craziness that life can be, and how we have each other's backs, and how she's drawn me awesome portraits, and I've knitted her every genre of an imaginable thing, and when she was falling apart and said, I just feel like my brain is melting with worry all the time, and I replied with, that sounds sticky, she laughed, and then everything was okay because we have each other, even though I don't know what her phone number is, or what her voice sounds like. But I know the inflection of her words as they flood into me in each email. It's through her sentences that I know Angela best, and I wonder if I'll ever meet her. Maria Hornbacher was my favorite author, the woman whose memoir, Madness, had taken me a year to read, not because I didn't like it, but because it was my story. Alcoholism and mental illness, the drink I didn't want to put down, but in seeing her words, I knew I would eventually have to. In over, though apt, identification with the text, I saw this woman as strong and incredible, awesome and intelligent, and I wanted to be her. I worshipped her words, and I wanted to write like her. And then a year after I read Madness in 2010, I was a few months into sobriety, and and I picked up a shift at a bookstore I worked at, which was when I checked the store's email. To Women and Children First Bookstore, from Maria Hornbacher. Hello, I'll be teaching at Northwestern this quarter, and I'd like to order a small number of books through your bookstore. How do I go about this? Very best, Maria Hornbacher. Maria Hornbacher, in my city, teaching a writing class? I for real squealed. I wasn't in school, and I was just starting to dabble in writing, but my God, I wanted to take that class. I emailed her back, and a conversation began. The class was full, but she suggested doing it one-on-one by meeting up weekly for coffee. This was in Chicago, and Maria lived in Minneapolis. She was only in town for her class once a week, so we picked the only time we were both available to meet, Thursdays at 6 a.m. But in between our weekly in-person meetings, a friendship started to grow through email, a connection, its kernel, planted in words. It was then that I would wake up at 1 a.m., because that's when she was up and writing emails and books. Aware of her twilight emails, my body must have known of them too. Sensed them. I got up at 1 a.m. with no alarm. Her emails excited me, made me fall in love with words and writing them. This was all during those 10 weeks when we met up every Thursday morning to talk writing and literature. Soon, talking writing turned into sharing essays and talking about our lives. We connected on a writer-person level, and 8 months later, I moved to Minneapolis to live with her. It's like I was an apprentice when I lived with Maria for that year, getting to know who I was as a writer through seeing how a writer lives. We'd wake up at 1 a.m. and chat over coffee before we retreated to our desks to write until we got tired and went back to bed. All day, every day, we sat at a coffee shop together, writing and giving feedback on each other's sentences. With Maria, I witnessed how a writer spends her days, how we must keep going after it no matter how hard it can be, because if we don't write, we'll go crazy. And it was Maria who brought me into the collective pronoun, the we of being a writer. She validated me as a writer, regardless of my initial lack of publication. It's what you do, Chelsey, she said. You write. And from that space, I grew, not just as a writer, but as a woman. When my ex-husband was having that psychotic break right in front of me, arguing with the walls and whatnot, it was my bestest best friend, Maria, who was there with me, my phone grasped in my hand, and reading her text messages as I gave frantic updates and asked what I should do, supporting me through handling the situation all the way through to that night in the hotel room, and even later on through my divorce, always. Every word I publish is a shout-out to my writer friends, a head nod of sorts, a thank you. Gratitude because each word was written with the sense that I'm not alone. But first, before publication, every time I get an acceptance, my first thought is, they must have emailed the wrong person. Or, they must have accepted the wrong essay. Or, they must not be as good of a journal as I thought they were if they're publishing my essay. Oh, it gets better. This is my brain. Or, it must be because I'm friends with the volunteer assistant editor on Facebook. Or, the editor must be a people pleaser and just doesn't know how to say no. Okay, I know that last hang-up is ridiculous, but how many conversations have I had with other women writers who do this? How we question our own work and worth. How we support each other but tear down ourselves. Why is it that acceptance and self-acceptance is questioned before it is celebrated? As women, how can we help each other through this? It's 2018 and a day is happening that I promised myself a year ago I wouldn't let happen, that I wouldn't let her do this to me again. She was a mentor who dropped me 16 years ago. Then, after 15 years of silence, we became friends again, only to have another falling out 1 year later. I'm sad, to say the least, suicidal even. A sobbing mess and my life is falling apart again. Too sad to do the editing work I've already been paid to do. I'm missing deadlines all over the place and unable to pick myself up off the floor. I'm certain that by the end of the day, I'll either be in the ICU or a psych ward. And yet, I'm still trying to get work done. Angela emails me asking for some essay critiques I was going to send her the day before, and I haven't done most of them, and now I can't handle anything anymore because I'm emotionally flatlining, and so I just tell her, in a bad place, I'm awake and emailing though, so that's an improvement. After a number of email exchanges and Angela cracking me up with comments about how her nose bleeds when she gets stressed, her ethnicity, and how the two tie together because in anime they say that Japanese people with nosebleeds are horny, within an hour, she has reassigned all the work I have to do, and now I'm free to just take care of myself. Then I get a text. Melissa, "Are you okay? Angela emailed and asked for some help with your WOW critiques. What else can I do to help?" That's Melissa Grunow. She's also a WOW instructor and is the one who I stayed with in a hotel room during a writers' conference, and we were like an old married couple. We retired early to our beds every night, exhausted, and watching house-flipping shows on HGTV because Melissa's a badass with a hammer and wood, while I knitted her fingerless mittens. We commented and bantered, and I didn't even want to think about what it would be like when I would have to return to my normal life, and Melissa would be miles, states, away from me. Melissa's also the one who, when I think about her, I see her sledgehammering her bathroom after she kicked out her mooch of a live-in boyfriend. I wasn't in her life during this time, but I read about it in her memoir that she hired me to edit 2 years prior, and by God, it made me fall in love with her. Anyway, I reply, "I'm not okay, but breathing, just really depressed and scared and debating to go to a psych ward. Just knowing you're there is plenty." Just knowing you're there is plenty. The truest words to say when your friends are states away. Those are the key words to people who can't physically be there, but the love and support from them at times feels stronger than any hug a person could give. You know what? I'm scared. This isn't a mental crisis like the other present tense segments of this essay. Rather, it's just the basic emotion of fear. I sit in front of what I've written of this essay so far, and the thought of reading back through it terrifies me. What if I hate my words? What if after all the effort I've put into this essay so far, I end up despising them? These women mean so much to me, and then I wrote all that about them. When I did it, I loved the thoughts I was putting down with my pen. The sentences I was scrawling out were fueled with a type of love that I now worry sounds too sentimental, too private, not universal enough. Words that will bore people who aren't me or them. And so I sit, scared out of my wits of my own essay, worried that I didn't capture what I thought I had captured, and so then I won't know what I'm doing, and I'll feel so lost in it, lost in me. I've been through a lot of shit in my life. What woman writer hasn't? But even with all the trauma and not good moments, the hardest thing I've ever done is write. Revising, specifically. I sit here with my words printed out in front of me, stalling like it's my job. Let's knit, make coffee, go social media, unimportant shit, check email, smoke a cigarette. All of that and more, because facing the fear that I have failed myself and therefore these women freezes me. And then I hear them, not my own words, but the messages these women would send if I were to text or email them how I felt right now. They'd say, "I get that." They'd say, "That shit happens to me all the time." They'd say, "You're an excellent writer." They'd say, "Shut the fuck up and get to it." And so I will, and I do. But why can't we believe in ourselves like we believe in each other? As an editor, I hold people's stories. As a trauma survivor, I help those stories find their voices. Because it's the experiences I've had that guide me in encouraging other survivors to find a voice. It's the editor in me that helps to shape that story into something tangible, something we can see and read. I give feedback about specifics, the mechanics, but as a female trauma survivor, I hold, help. It might look like I'm by myself, but I'm never alone. I'm holding people's stories, guiding even the therapeutic activity of crafting a voice for your experience. I've read so much about trauma, have seen the ways so many people have survived to tell the story of those who haven't. I've become close with every person who has trusted me with their words, women who didn't think they had a right to speak, who then found the courage to get a voice on the page and have trusted me with those fragile parts of themselves. They let me hold the shards so together we can work them into a smooth beauty, a story we can hold with pride. When before it was the story itself the writer had been trying to hide. These are the experiences I get to witness, regardless that I haven't met most of these women. The fact that our connection is made through words is awe-inspiring, magical even, life-giving. In high school, there was a poster about STDs hanging on the wall in my anatomy classroom. It was a family tree of sorts. That is, if you sleep with one person, you're exposed to all the people those people slept with, all the people those people slept with, and all the people those people slept with. It's like the STD version of the Kevin Bacon game. The point here is about human contact, human connection. Because each story we experience is built from an infinite number of other experienced stories. We are linked to one another by how we arrived at this moment. That one moment where a woman tells her story and it inspires someone else to tell all of her stories. These experiences intersect. Stories build on stories. Women writers lift each other up with our words. As an editor, my job is to make those connections more powerful. As a writer, as a woman, my job is to make the connections by living them first, then giving them voice. What I'm trying to say here is that I hear you. Lorraine has a quirky idea for a book, the concept of which makes me fall in love with it, and Lorraine. It's a speculative memoir in which her dead father comes back to her as a raven, and they figure out life and their relationship together in the context of his death and how she just survived cancer. Totally amazing. Lorraine is now a dear friend, but initially she was an admirer of my work. When she read my latest book, she then contacted me, wondering if I could help her write in the way that I do. That is, not hiding behind words or holding back an experience. Flattered, of course I said yes. A year later, and her book is written, and we're at a writers' conference together. And though I'm still her editor and will go through the final draft of her book that summer, we're more like friends than just work acquaintances. She gives a reading one night where she gets to share 5 minutes of her own writing, and Lorraine has decided to read the first few pages of her Raven memoir. I'm sitting next to Melissa during this reading, the dark green walls of this bar barely containing the dozens of readers and listeners, and now here's Lorraine's voice as she reads the work I've known so intimately on the page for the past year. Each word, each revision has gotten me closer to this fantastic woman and her heart and her brain. And now here is her story with life and breath, and the experience shakes me so deeply. I lean over to Melissa and say, "Oh my God, I'm going to cry." She looks at me and smiles. She understands how astounding this moment is. And then I do. I start crying a bit at the beauty of this woman, her words that I helped to encourage into life. And now they have breath, and I'm sitting next to a dear writer friend who gets it only like how a writer friend could. As women writers, we are a collection of these stories, these words, these tragedies, and these poetics of experience, as well as how we survive them, and in that survival, we become empowered. Individually, as women, we've been called many things: bitch, cunt, slut, whore, all of that. Collectively, we've been called not the most empowering terms: a giggle of girls, a gaggle of gossips, a mutter of mothers-in-law, a squeal of nieces, an impatience of wives. But as women writers, creating our communities, empowering each other through words, we can flex our creativity muscles and rename ourselves for the group that we really are. We aren't a gaggle or a giggle or a squeal. We are a resilience of women. Thank you. Thank you.
You're still here.
I'm still here.
You don't get rid of you that quick. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just want to say the book that I'm writing is called A Resilience of Women, and it's a collection of all the empowering women that are in my life.
Wow.
So those two are in it. Not that Courtney is the most empowering person, but she's very strong. She's been through a lot. She's still standing, hopefully.
And I'm sure she's a catalyst.
Yes. She definitely is.
The next book. So this book, what's Circadian about?
Circadian is a collection of lyric essays, which is basically just means they're kind of weird. And there's charts and graphs in there, and a whole essay that's all bullet points. But it takes different facts of life and turns them into sort of how do we poetically explain our experience. And so it's about trauma and addiction and mental illness and all the fun stuff. And it just is a different way to kind of look at our lives through facts and fun number stuff. So it's cool.
Thank you.
I like it. Yeah. It's won awards, so some people like it.
We have an endorsement from Pat here.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate that, honey.
So we have a few minutes to ask questions. If Chelsey has some questions, and we do have a microphone here with John King.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that. So if anyone has a question they would like to ask Chelsey, John is going to do some kind of Houdini act here.
With the cord, that's a long cord.
Yeah, with a long cord. And
more like Buster Keaton.
All right. If anyone has a question they'd like to ask Chelsey, go right ahead.
We have to take the moment until somebody puts their hand up.
Let me take this. Oh,
Someone
Okay.
at the back.
We got back, and then we
The
got
very
here, too.
back person.
is this okay?
But you can ask a question too, John.
All right, you'll have to meet me halfway.
Yeah, he will. Here, come forward, ask. No, it doesn't go.
We're having a moment.
Logistics. We're writers. We don't know how to do that.
Chelsey, I was here at this essay writing workshop that you had, and I was the least courageous of all. I never read. Everybody else read, but I didn't.
He was also the only man. Yeah.
Yeah, and but
which is courageous enough.
the thing that I find in your writing is your incredible courage. I just
Well, thank you.
one of the things that I admire about your writing is the fact that you're so courageous. You just go for it. You're just so open. It's unbelievable. I mean, it really
thank
is.
you.
I think for me, it teaches me that, there's a wall of privacy that your writing really cuts right through. And it's
Sometimes.
and by the way, your last line of this reading was just amazing.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
I'm very proud of that line.
Anyway, can you share your experience of is trauma something that's given you like that courage from experiencing in others?
For the Shape of a Day, the first piece I read, when it was published, they did an author interview with me, and the woman asked, she was like, "What is it to write about such an intimate experience?" And I'm like, "That's what I write about. I don't know how not to write about that." For me, it's like we have these experiences, so what else are we going to do with them? For like the writing is a purging of some sorts, but because I'm an editor, I'm such a word geek, and so going back through them and getting to edit them is kind of like taking the pain to a type of art, and it becomes something that you can shape and claim. And so I've always just thought these are the experiences I've had, and so I'm just going to put them out here. I think I've written about every trauma and embarrassing thing that's happened to me. I need more traumatic shit to happen, or else I'm going to run out of words. But you're like, please, no. We've had enough. We've been through enough, really. But one thing I do want to put in a plug, I teach a creative writing class online. It's called Face Your Fears, and it's an anonymous writing class. And so it's online, so nobody knows each other's names. And so it's a safe space for women to write about trauma without having to worry about, being judged or anything by your peers. So that's my way of encouraging, like, we have this stuff, we should write about it.
Chelsey also is a freelance editor, and I can highly recommend her as an editor. She's incredibly insightful, and you don't have to write like her for her to actually see wonderfully just what you're doing and to help you take your manuscript to the next level. So I'm going to put in a plug for that.
I appreciate it. I edit a lot of fiction, which is funny because I don't know how to write fiction. I have no clue how to make shit up and write it, but I can edit the hell out of it. Yeah.
Not about any of that. You just elevated it to another level. I don't. I was just going to ask about your last, what you just spoke of. It's not in this book.
The piece I just read?
Yeah.
No, yeah. That's actually not even, it's submitted to a few contests right now, so I'm hoping it's a contest
new.
winner.
It's not out.
It's new, yeah. I wrote it while I was here.
It's spectacular.
Thank you. It's been through some revisions, and it sat for a while, and it was, I think maybe because I cared so much about it, it was a really hard essay to write, but thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for this space. I don't think I would have been able to have the emotional space to go through that essay, to write that within a month. Like, that's way above what I usually do. It's way quicker, so.
I'm sure there's more there. Right?
You get that feeling?
Yeah, like that's not an essay, that's a book.
It could, yeah, that definitely could be a book. That's why it's funny, when I came here, I planned on writing this hybrid memoir about the falling out of a friendship and my divorce and losing a 4-year-old girl in my life. And after 3 days of focusing on that, I was like, this is going to be the darkest 3 months that I've ever faced in my life. And so I've always wanted to write this book about empowering women in my life. And that was the first essay that I tried going for it. And I was like, yeah, the women writers. There's so much here. Yeah.
It could be good.
I mean, I'm like, each of those women. That's why that essay was originally like 26 pages, I think. I mean, I could just go on and on about how much it was. And I had to cut some of it out because that would be way too long. So, yeah, there's many stories. But I'm doing an essay about the main women in my life. Each woman gets an essay.
Well,
So
I like it.
Well, thank you.
Good.
One more question, and then we have something else special.
Hi, Chelsey.
Hi, Mary.
when you edit, how has editing other people changed the way that you edit yourself?
It is so incredibly helped. I think because I edit other people, I've gotten to be a much better editor of my work. Like, these pieces have not been edited by anybody but me. And so I'm able to look at it more objectively and look at it. For me, editing is like a science. It's like a puzzle almost, and you got to put it together and you figure out where everything goes. And I think you can get better at that the more that you look at it that way. And so editing other people's work, sometimes I will say, honestly, I'll edit other people's work and I'll be like, okay, well, I'm a much better writer than this person. So it can give me some confidence, I will say that. But then there are sometimes that I've edited people's work and I've been like, oh my God, I'm a terrible writer. I don't know how to do this. Like Maria's work, my best friend, I'll edit her stuff and I'm just like, oh my God, you're amazing. And so I also get to see the quirks that people do in their own writing, both good and bad, and then apply to mine if I do or don't want to. But it definitely, editing is more important to me, I think, than writing. Writing I can do. It's the editing and shaping it that is a lot harder. So it's given me a lot of practice and good insight.
If I may ask, where are you off to next and what's your next step?
I'm going back to Courtney's house.
All right, more material.
After that, I know. We'll have plenty of material. I'll have a whole book. So when I go to Courtney's, because I'm a freelance editor, I work from home. So I will be doing, if you live in the neighborhood, you've seen me sit here, that's what I do. That is my life. So I will be doing that in Texas, though. And so I'll be editing and working on this book and then starting to go more into teaching online. And I started editing other people's books again. So I'll be working on this.
And what will you take away from your time at the Kerouac House?
Confidence. Definitely a lot of confidence. And that, if you just, like I said in the essay, you have to stick with it. And just stick with it, and you do know what you're doing, hopefully, or you will figure out what you're doing. But, I think being here, I said it in my application letter. I was like, I don't necessarily need, like, a physical space. Like, give me a flat surface, like a table, my lamp, my grandmother's dead body. I literally said that in my essay for you guys. I don't know if you remember that, but it's true. I'm like, I can write wherever, but I need the space, as in, like, the mental space, and having this it gives you so much time and space, both physical and the mental, to really be able to just sit and think through something. It's amazing how much in my normal life, I feel like I'm like, okay, I have an hour, and I have to do everything in an hour. I have to write this essay in an hour because I have to do all this other stuff. But when you're here, you don't have to cram that, and you allow your brain to sit, which is why I knit. I can just sit there for 2 hours and knit and, like, plan out the whole essay in my head. So